Hey everybody, welcome back to the Quest for the Bestest. It's the podcast where we are taking a look at every single Best Picture winner in random order with our goal of trying to figure out which one is the very best. Today, of course, I'm Timo, joined by the rest of the Backlog boys. It's Abram, Tucker, and Tanner, and we are going to be talking about the 2004 Best Picture winner. That's Crash, written and directed by Paul Haggis. An interesting movie, a racial roller coaster, you might say. And boy, oh boy, we all cannot wait to dive into it. So let's just skip the small talk. Last week, we talked about 1948's Laurence Olivier's Hamlet from, back in the day, pretty straight retelling of it. We thought it was low to mid or so, got a 5.0 ranking, and ended up in place number 35. So, well, we got a little new thing. Tucker, you want to take it away? We got an audience comment that we particularly liked about this, about that episode.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of really good comments on Quest. That's our show where we get the best comments. And one of our most classic commenters that's always giving fantastic insights onto our films is John Tor 11. And he made a long comment about Hamlet, and it was really fantastic, mostly, I think, because he agreed with me. To pull a little bit of a clip from that, he said, "Tucker gave me the word that I was searching for, frustration and anger. That's what I thought and felt throughout the whole film. I got so distracted that I couldn't concentrate on the story, the cinematography, or the cool shots that Timo mentioned. All I got was frustration." And John Tor, my man, my buddy, I agree with you. Thank you very much for validating my thoughts on this film. But if you are listening to this, if you want to have your thoughts read on the next episode of the Quest for the Bestest, whatever it might be, we don't know what's coming up next, make sure to go to YouTube if you're on one of our podcast services, or if you're on YouTube, leave in the comments down below your thoughts on the film, and there's a chance that you might be our highlighted guest of next week.
Yeah, and if you want to chat more directly with us, of course, join the Discord, and remember to do all those funny like and subscribe stuff. You know, it really helps us out. So, Crash, you want to get into it? I want to get into it. You know who I want to hear the thoughts about it first?
Yes.
Tanner, tell me your thoughts about this movie right away.
Okay, so last week, when we rolled over on Crash on the wheel, I said this was infamously one of the worst Best Picture winner, and watching it, I may have poisoned the well a little bit going into it, but I was vindicated in my take there. This is, showing my hand early, the worst Best Picture winner I have ever seen. It is, Timo, you described it as a racial roller coaster. This film's politics are so misguided and underhanded and just all over the place. We talked about filmmaking fundamentals on this show. Those are lacking in almost every department. And what is the worst about this film, I think, is that it really thinks it's doing something. Every single actor thinks they're just knocking it out of the park here, and they are just not. I can't wait to sink my teeth into this rotting carcass of a film. We are some hungry buzzards circling this film, and I can't wait.
Well, Tanner's coming strong out of the gate, so who dares follow him up with that one?
I'll go.
Abram?
He dares.
I notoriously make a good joke or two about being not excited to watch a lot of the movies we watch on Quest, but I genuinely do go into every viewing with an open mind because these are Best Picture winners. There's a reason that they won, and I want to understand that, even if it's not something that inherently appeals to me. And most of the time, I am proven wrong. This movie is fucking awful, categorically. Yeah. I was talking about this in Discord the other night. There's Oscar bait. And this is Oscar bait, but this is like one of those red plastic bobbers that if a fish takes it, they're dumb. I legitimately think that this is so far below the quality of most of the films we watch here that I'm really shocked, because not only is it poor from a filmmaking perspective, and I want to get into a couple sequences that bordered on satire, in my opinion, but I think that the film thematically and narratively is so poor, and this has arguably, certainly my least favorite script I've ever had the misfortune of appreciating in a piece of cinema, but I just think that it is misguided, mismanaged, and it really tells me that most people that voted this year did not watch the other nominees, because how else do you vote for this fucking garbage pile? This movie's terrible. Legitimately terrible.
Tucker?
Yes.
I mean, I obviously agree. I think my main point here is I have been one to say, even for movies like Great Ziegfeld or Tom Jones or whatever, these movies that we don't like, and Hamlet, which I especially don't like, I've gone into them with a very open mind. And I honestly went into Crash with that open mind too. I'm like, okay, I'm trying to pull at the strings here. I want to put together this narrative. I'm really trying to appreciate it. But as it just went on, there's a gap here between the quality of this Best Picture winner and everything else. It's absolutely heinous. Like I watch Tom Jones or Going My Way, and I'm like, yeah, okay, there's some elements here. I can see maybe why someone might have considered this Best Picture, but this should not have even been in the running for a short list of nominations. Like, this shouldn't have been in the top 20 possible nominees for 2004. And it's just a very clear example of the Academy, like, politicizing, like, hey guys, we made a racism movie win Best Picture. Aren't we cool? And it feels like that throughout. It's like, hey, racism's bad, and yeah. And that's the only thought that I could have going through this whole movie is, wow, I don't know how they borked this so terribly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say I'm joining in. I'm joining in on the dog pile. This movie's really bad, except I love to watch it. This movie was so much fun to watch and just like make fun of. Like,
sure.
One of that's a specific type of viewing experience, and I watched it. I'm in my new house. I've got some roommates now, and so we sat down, a couple of us, and watched this movie last night. And boy, did we have a lot of fun yelling at the TV. Man, that was a good time. And yeah, this movie is so strange. This is such a strange movie. I just like whoa. The number of times where I just would look at something would happen and I just go, what? Like, what?
Yeah.
Why is this happening? Like, what? Yeah.
The first thing I actually want to say coming off of this is that this movie is very funny to talk about, but the fact that it's this funny is a complete bungling of what this movie is supposed to be about.
Oh, yeah. This is not a funny movie at all.
No, it's supposed to be a damning condemnation of, like, America's issues with race, but it's just a damning condemnation of terrible filmmaking, and that's a humongous disappointment because this movie is too good to be so bad it's good. This is a movie with a star-studded cast that was nominated for a Best Picture.
That won.
This is not me watching Gods of Egypt with my friends and we're yelling at Gerard Butler and terrible CGI. This is a movie about racism with an incredible cast that won Best Picture. It does not deserve to operate in the space that these other movies do, but it does, and that is just incomprehensible to me.
Okay, let's get into specifics. I can't wait to hear some specific thoughts about this because
all right,
I have some thoughts about many elements, but let's Tanner. I think you want to go. Well,
okay,
maybe.
I was gonna ask
Tanner. You can go.
This is an amalgamation of many different stories. So I was gonna throw it to you fellas. What character, which of these brilliant, deep, just really intensely well-written characters do you want to delve into first?
I just want
I've got all their names
written
down, by the way.
Can we do favorites and least favorites? That seems like a fun thing.
Oh,
because I know I have a clear favorite character in this film that I loved every minute.
I think we should all have the same favorite because there was only one like actually good person in this movie, I think. So if I may,
okay,
what I think that everyone's favorite character is going to be / should be Michael Pena. I should add, I don't remember any character's name from this film. We're only going to be referring to them by their actor's name.
Yeah.
If you're curious, I can let you know. I have them all written down on my page.
Oh, sure.
Let's find
Michael
out.
Pena's character is Daniel.
And he's the lock guy. He's the lock guy, right?
He's a locksmith, yes.
Okay, well, he's not my favorite because I loved Ludacris.
Oh, really?
I loved Ludacris in
Luda.
the movie. Luda is hilarious. I don't think he's particularly good. I don't think his character is has a very interesting arc, except that he goes from hating on the bus to riding the bus. Like, what a brilliant arc that is. I mean, he's got some one-liners in this film that, like, knocked my socks off and how much they made me laugh, which is not good. Like, none of these points that I'm making and smiling about are, like, to the benefit of this movie. Luda is pretty cool. I really liked it whenever he was on the screen.
Abram?
I mean, I don't know. I don't have one. Because there's no character that does anything of interest here. You see Michael Pena's arc with his daughter from a mile away when they do the Super Bowl car commercial of him with his daughter under the bed. I think that this film is so poor in how many narratives it tries to juggle, and the worst character is probably all of them. Legitimately. Nobody has any time to do anything, and when they do, it is boneheaded and contrived. These aren't characters. These are like stand-ins for different races and cultures, first of all, which I think is very weird.
Well, the film is based on
second-
racial stereotypes. The film upholds a lot of racial stereotypes in trying to dismantle them, but it always reconfirms them in the end.
Right, so I simply cannot give you a favorite or least favorite character. What I can say, to your point about Ludacris, first of all, he does, Ludacris in general is a person with just charisma, so I did like seeing Ludacris, but it felt like Quentin Tarantino came in to write a page and a half when they find the Chinese man, I can't say it with a straight face, they find a Chinese man under their truck, and they have to take him out. Like like I'm watching fucking Pulp Fiction. I have no favorite or least favorite character in this movie. I just don't.
Sure.
Well, I think that boils down to the core problem that this movie has, is not only does it have too many characters, but none of them have any reason for you to like them because they're all racist assholes. Even the characters that you think are going to be somewhat good and you're on the edge of your seat, I'm paraphrasing that, but just like, please don't do something racist. I'm begging you. And then, like, all of them, inevitably, except for Michael Pena, do something racist. And I it's just so frustrating to not have anyone to connect to. Like seriously, you're thrown between all these stories of all these characters that inevitably do something really, really shitty that makes them not a very compelling character or something you want to connect to, and it does that for the entire cast, and I think that's absolutely wild.
Or it does the opposite of that, where you have a character that is portrayed as like a horrible racist who then gets redeeming elements in the backside. And you're like, why do the characters who are like the most outwardly horrible need to have these things that make, like, why does the movie want me to sympathize with this character? I don't want to. I'm talking about the cop.
Timo, thank you for bringing that. Yeah, Matt Dillon.
Yeah.
Matt Dillon, the cop. Tucker, do you have a character name? Matt Dillon, please.
Matt Dillon. Officer John Ryan.
Oh, John Ryan. Okay.
Wow, what a white dude
Officer
name.
Ryan. I want to talk about Officer John Ryan a second.
Okay.
Just a reprehensible human being. Racially profiles, then sexually assaults Tandy Newton and Terrence Howard.
Yep.
And then is horribly racist to the lady from Sierra Burgess is a loser, the insurance lady. And then but we're supposed to sympathize with him because his dad can't pee or whatever. His dad has cancer.
Because he's getting like screwed over by the insurance company, but like, I still don't care because he's shown in every circumstance to be a horrible racist, and then he like goes on to save this, like, whoa.
Yes. Okay. So this film is really about these some of its characters learning not to be racist. And the way it wants us to think Matt Dillon learns not to be racist is by doing his job as a police officer. Like, by not racially profiling or abusing somebody, he actually rescues someone, again, his job, and then he's like, oh man, racism's bad, huh? And then we never go back to him again. His character arc's done, check that off the list.
Yeah,
moving on.
I think he is the reason we start with him is because he's really an example of the core problem that this movie has. Is it's a weak character that's very clearly stereotyped, does terrible things that'll like distance you from wanting to appreciate the character or be invested in their arc in any way, and then his arc is relegated to this terribly contrived and simplistic thing that is forced and what makes you want to think, oh, okay, or the writers clearly want you to think, hey, he's actually, it's all morally gray. Racism comes from every angle, but we can do good things and bad things. But it's so contrived that it doesn't work, and it kneecaps that character everyone related to him.
You say contrived. Yes. I just gonna say this really quick. This movie is incredibly convenient.
Yes.
That for me. So here's the problem. This movie is. Let's be generous for a moment. It's a character study. Okay. Let's be generous. But this movie has more set piece action moments than any character study I've ever seen. And this is why it doesn't work particularly well. Because the scene where he's pulling Sanity Newton out of the car is was so egregious in its setup and in the gasoline and fire that I almost couldn't believe it could get worse. And then Michael Pena is undercut with his daughter jumping into his arms and the bullet going nowhere from the other man. That sequence somehow made the cop part with Thandie Newton seem not as ridiculous. And that is a humongous problem with your movie. These sequences completely take you out of what is already an incredibly thin and terribly written character study.
Well, I don't want to be one to defend Crash here, but that was a setup and payoff actually, because the Persian guy's daughter purchased blanks at the very beginning, the first scene of the movie, and those were blanks in the gun. So
you're not shown that they're blanks. You just kind of know that she bought bullets without knowing what type they were, and they never mentioned blanks as existing in that scene. I knew it immediately, like 2 seconds after that. I was like, oh, she got some blanks. And then it was another half hour until the film told me, and I was like, dude, like everybody figured out that they were blanks if you didn't already, in that moment when she didn't die, and then we have to wait like ages to find out that to be confirmed. I was like,
sure.
You do. This film makes you wait ages, like Timo said, to get back to any character. Mm-hmm. There are so many, and their sequences are so long and drawn out that you're like, and some of them end abruptly with like I mentioned with Matt Dillon, we never go back to him, and some of them keep popping up over and over again, and it somehow makes you not care about any of them.
Except Luda. I really cared about Luda. I'm going to make a super cut of this movie with only the scenes where he's in it.
Okay, here's what I want to say, because I can pull out any character and say, like, this is like the worst part. This is like their worst moment from this movie.
Yeah.
When at the very beginning, when he's talking to his buddy when they're walking down the street about like
being racially stereotyped by the waitress.
Being racially stereotyped. And they have that whole conversation. They end it with, why would anyone be afraid of us? Because we have guns. That's a good point. And they go carjack somebody. Why were they having that conversation? Why those two characters in the world of that film, why were they having that conversation? That is purely a moment for the audience to be undercut. And also, the undercutting is going back to the racial stereotypes that the characters themselves were just negating. Yeah. So Paul Haggis, I have to ask you, what are you doing with this screenplay? I might add, this film won Best Writing Original Screenplay, as well as Editing, which is also terrible, and, of course, Best Picture.
But it only won those three.
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
Which is really important. Has there been any kind of even suggestion from anybody associated with this film that it was satire?
I don't think so.
Not that...
No.
I
read the entire Crash Wikipedia page, and I pulled out like an entire page worth of notes on this film, and nothing of that.
I felt I needed to ask because like I read Jane Austen's Persuasion, which is like a great work of literature. I'm like, this makes no sense, but then it turns out it's satire, and I was nervous or I was going to get into a situation here with Crash where it was the same thing. But
no,
it's okay. Good.
There's no way.
No.
If I can read out the nominees very quickly,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Matt Dillon was nominated for a supporting role. Paul Haggis was nominated for Best Director, and there was the original song that was written for this that was also nominated. So there you go. There you have it. All undeserved.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
We were talking about Ludacris and his little friend, and one interaction just like really sticks with me. Luda yells at the friend because he wants to ride the bus, and he's like, Ludacris, he says to his friend, we can't ride the bus because the bus is, where marginalized people have to ride the bus because the economic situation forces them into it, and then the windows are so big so that everyone can look into it. And like the first half of that statement, okay, fine, like yeah, that's mostly true. The windows thing, it's kind of ridiculous, but sure, read into it however you want. And then his friend is like, he pivots. He doesn't want to talk about it anymore. So he's like, let's go watch some hockey. Let's go see a Kings game. And then Luda's like, for no reason, he's like, I don't like hockey. Don't bring it up around me. You only bring up hockey around me because I hate it and it pisses me off. And you do it intentionally. And it's like this like so random. It was so funny to me. I was like laughing. It was not supposed to be a funny sequence. But
no.
God.
Abram, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. Go ahead.
If we want to talk about unintentionally funny, and you want to talk about how undeserved the editing award is, can we talk about Sandra Bullock falling down the stairs?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh Christ!
Sandra Bullock. First of all, She's in the movie for like 5 minutes, according to Amazon Prime's X-ray trivia, which it gave me. And in those 5 minutes, she manages to really, I think, tarnish her career as an actress throughout this film, because not only does she feel she's probably one of the most overtly racist characters in the film. Her in the end, her moment of redemption is that she fell down the stairs. Her friend didn't take her to the hospital, and then she hugs her maid, and she's like, "You're my best friend in the world." But the implication is that doesn't make sense because she's in a lesser racial and class-based position to Sandra Bullock, which is just a really icky way to end that character's arc after a horribly executed action sequence. So that was perhaps the most. The hug with the maid was probably the most unsavory part of the film, in my opinion. But what led up to it was the most comically funny. So I don't know what to
I
do.
was rolling. I laughed
disagree.
out loud so much when she fell down the stairs. It was so funnily shot. It was shot like a freaking comedy.
I wholeheartedly agree with how ridiculous that Sandra Bullock scene is and how terribly her arc ends and that interaction. All that's terrible. But I wholeheartedly disagree that's the most unsavory part of the film. Because do you remember, let's think back, we all saw Crash. Do you remember when they revealed that the Chinese guy was actually a human trafficker?
Thank you.
And there's just a bunch of like people who have been human trafficked in the back, and that just comes out of nowhere. It's not a plotline that's necessary in any particular way. It only serves to put the guy that they run over in a bad light to sort of frame every character in this is a bad person to some degree. And of course, that's probably the worst thing that someone does in this movie is like have 20 people in the back of his car that have clearly not been like, showered or fed or whatever in a week. And then they just get released like wild animals into Chinatown. Because Ludacris is like racially stereotyping. He's like, go get some chop suey and hands him $20. It's like, all of that is incredibly unsavory, and he just doesn't fit the tone of the film. It comes out of nowhere.
It's convenient because they needed to wrap up Luda's arc. They needed to make him because he did some bad stuff. He did good stuff in the beginning, bad stuff in the middle, and then he needs to do some good stuff again. And so his good stuff is letting them go on a street corner. That was a ridiculous scene. Also, he was just letting imagine you're chilling and you see Ludacris unloading a van full of human trafficked Asian people on the corner of your street. That is like the most unrealistic thing I'd seen.
Yeah, that's why I think that moment isn't as offensively poor to me, because it is so wild in its conception and execution that you can't help but feel nothing when it happens. Black Widow had a more sensitive and nuanced approach to human trafficking than Crash did, and that's not a very good thing to say about this film. But it's emblematic of the fact that when you think that the film is out of things to introduce, there's always another complication.
Exactly.
And that is such a poor way to communicate a story and make you connect to anybody when there's always something new unfolding. Like in the case of Don Cheadle, who doesn't have an arc as much as he had, to return the beginning analogy, a roller coaster, where he starts back where he began and nothing really happens with his character.
Well, and the whole film starts where it began because it ends with that crash, and at the end is the beginning, and it all starts again. I was making a particular hand gesture with one of my fingers with both my hands towards the TV screen when that happened.
How nonsensical is that opening monologue where he's just like, "Hey, we're all just crashing into each other, man. I think that we're separated so much by this metal and glass that we all just want to get closer to each other."
What are you talking about? You got spun around too many times.
Yeah.
Oh God!
And you know what? She's probably right.
Yeah, she's right.
And then you're like, okay, and then like this film always does, you're like, okay, she has a good point. Maybe she's the person in the right here. And then she immediately walks out of the car, sees an Asian person, is like, I'm gonna be racist today.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I actually do want to ground all of this in one particular point, which is my only positive point about this movie, and it's from a conceptual level, the idea of telling an anthology series of stories where every character is impacting one another is pretty interesting. There are setups and payoffs. The characters pretty much all influence one another's lives in some way, and it's told non-linearly. I think from a conceptual perspective, all of that is pretty interesting. And if it was done well, could be a great way to tell a lot of perspectives spanning an entire city over the course of 2 days. Everything's mixed together and we all have impact on each other, bro. that could be really cool. And from that level, this movie is creatively structured. But everything within that is so terribly done that it undercuts that unique just concept that it has.
I was going to say, I definitely don't think this film is 3-act. It's obviously an alternative narrative. There's the jumbled plot, something like that. There's a bunch of names for stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, Tucker, that had this film taken that idea and executed every single aspect of it better. A hot take here, it would be a better film.
Yeah.
I think the problem, Tucker, because I like that concept, but let's take a step back and think about it for a second. This is a movie about hate crimes, human trafficking, drug addiction, inner city violence, police corruption, and far more things I haven't even named yet. And yes, those are, in the real world, all very much intertwined. But in a narrative this over-encumbered, I don't think it makes sense to tell this big story of cause and effect with an unnecessary time conceit, because it leads to everything being underserved in the pursuit of this gimmicky form of storytelling. Because ultimately, I think that because of the convenience, because of the ways that the only characters who interact are these characters, it leads to this feeling of this is servicing a concept opposed to servicing any of the themes. And with themes this heavy on this big of a stage, being this Academy Award-winning film, you need to take the time to develop any of them. And I think it was either telling a competent character study that has really important themes, or telling this interlocked mesh and mess of a narrative. And I don't think those, even in the best case scenario, would have come out in a way that you would have serviced what this movie really should be about, which is not necessarily the conceit of the production, instead what it's trying to communicate to you about America.
Yeah. I think the last thing I want to end on, because I think we're kind of running out of steam here, is that not only is the story borked, not only do all the characters suck, not only do all the actors not give their greatest performances, but this movie is just poorly made. It has really, really, really bad color grading, like heinously offensive to the eyeballs color grading.
I definitely want to
like
get into the filmmaking fundamentals of this film, because this is clearly an early 2000s movie. This movie looks similarly to Lord of the Rings. I think they're shot in this weird things are pseudo digital, but it's shot on film. But then you're gonna color grade it digitally, and you're gonna blow out everything. And so the color grading is whack. You're so right about that, Tucker. I think the cinematography is also very strange. Just got to mention the Michael Pena shot where he gets shot and he reels his head back, and it's the quickest dolly zoom ever, and it's my God, the director, why did you, that's so, I think it gets to my thesis about the film. This film is so emotionally manipulative. This film just does what it absolutely needs to elicit one specific feeling from you in a moment. And in that moment, just that shot encapsulates the whole idea of this oh, we're supposed to feel really horrible about this character, so we're going to use this unbelievably dramatic shot, which doesn't really work because a dolly zoom is best executed in a long span of time, like in Jaws, where it was thought of first. But oh my, I laughed. It's a serious moment. I wasn't laughing. I was enough into it and oh shit, she just got shot, and then that shot happened, and I'm I don't care. That was hilarious. I think the film has some really bad ADR too. I think the ADR in this film really sucks. I can tell every single line that they re-recorded.
Yeah, I agree.
It also has really heinous music choices. You guys remember just a choir randomly playing over certain sequences? Just random pop culture songs occasionally popping in for things where it does not fit, and you're who chose this? This entirely undercuts any possible emotion you could be getting out of this scene.
And the film does not have a lot of visual tricks in its book. The number of times a door opens or closes and it cuts to a different door opening or closing with a different character is really outrageous.
They're not even good match cuts.
No, they're not. They're incredibly obvious and repetitive. I don't understand how this happened. That's my biggest point.
The film is trying to do
Yes.
the bare minimum to make itself work, but the bare minimum shows.
I think if you follow me on Letterboxd at Tanner_Dykstra, you will see that I gave this film a 0.5-star rating. And that is, the criteria for that is, what the hell were they thinking? And I think that fits maybe better than any other film to Crash. Because just the writer had to have been thinking they were doing something here, right? I mean, if you look at, I mean, Tucker brought up the other two films that are on the lowest on this list. He brought up Tom Jones and Going My Way.
Yeah.
And those, I sort of came up with like a babysitting analogy. If those movies are children that you're babysitting, you know, maybe they're not the brightest bulbs on the tree. You know, they scribble in their color books and they pick their nose
eat a
and
little
eat it
glue.
and whatever. They take a bite off the end of the crayon, but it's a non-toxic crayon. It's fine. They'll live. But Crash is sort of like a devil child that if you turn your back for an instant, they're making a beeline to throw themselves down a flight of stairs just for the hell of it. It's actively trying to be terrible and harm itself. And it is... just for the theatrics of it, even it's just like, watch this, and it tumbles down. It tumbles out of a window. I don't understand it.
I think that's why it's so much fun to watch. I think I had so much fun to watch.
It is offensively bad.
It's a really fun movie to watch, in my opinion.
It's a racism soap opera, which is acute but also very peculiar, because if you watch, like, my aunt is a big General Hospital fan, so sometimes you catch a little bit. And at a certain point, when you're doing that sort of serialized creation, you have to keep telling storylines that become more and more outrageous as you go along, because you have to keep this material going. And that's what it felt like in an hour and 40 minutes. It felt like it was constantly trying to top its last concept, pay off some old setup, but in a way that felt completely creatively bankrupt. Because in a movie that's trying to portray realism, there is nothing realistic about the ways that people's lives are intertwined, and it's just it's so ham-fisted.
Yeah.
There's zero nuance. I'm just looking at my notes. I'm trying to find anything else here. There's zero nuance. Every single character interaction is just about racism. We don't get any characterization in any way, shape, or form. Some trivia, if you guys want some trivia.
Okay.
Paul Haggis and Bobby Moresco wrote the first draft of the screenplay in 2 weeks. I think it shows. The movie was shot in only 36 days, so I think they were really trying to rip the Band-Aid off and get this over with.
Well, something I know about the production is that they did that because they had so little budget. They had to shoot in Paul Haggis's house using his car and the cars of other crew members. And Paul Haggis had to like mortgage his house like 3 times to get this movie made. It was a really, really low budget movie.
Imagine this being your dream project. Listen. I know he's a struggling director. I'm sure he had his rough times or whatever trying to make it in Hollywood. But imagine this being your dream project that you're willing to throw your money and your house and your car behind.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's a very noble story to try to tell. I guess that's it, but it didn't come across at all.
Yeah.
I do think, though, that it is, even though you're right about the idea of it being noble, telling this gray story where but everyone's got these implicit biases, the film is so rooted in how it describes its characters in racial stereotypes that are harmful. The film, like, supports these things. It shows you, bad racist people, and then it gives you reasons to like them. And I find that a fairly inexcusable, thing to do as a writer. And it's self-defeating. And being based in this whole racism, having your characters like fulfill racial stereotypes, even when they're trying to contradict them, they always end up falling back into the racial stereotypes. It's like, I mean, if you're trying to be noble, which they were, why are you like conforming to all of this? Why are you still supporting it? Even when you say that you tell us that you're not supporting it, but you show us that you are supporting it, and we all believe the show.
Crash boldly says what no other film had the guts to say. It's that racism is bad, and we're all racist. Drops mic, Big Chungus 100. Everybody clapped. Obama was there.
Oh man.
Oh,
okay,
Christ.
let's just put our votes in. Let's get this over with. I'm really curious. I don't know I really have no idea what number I'm going to put in now.
You got to know within the next like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I have my number. I think I know.
I have my number. I'm ready.
Everyone ready?
I'm ready.
Everyone ready?
3, 2, 1.
2, 1.
Wow. Wow. Would you look at that?
Holy shit-a-moly.
Woo!
Now, how does this average
baby.
out?
Well, let's
Oh boy.
see how this averages out in just a second. There we go. Whoa, that's a mighty low
Whoa.
number.
Okay. I think we should read out these numbers for the listeners.
Well, first of all, our average score is a 1.2. That's the bottom. That is like nowhere near. I mean, Tom Jones is at a 2.8, but Crash 1.2, well under half the score of Tom Jones. The ratings, I guess we'll go through them. Tanner, you wanted to say them?
Yeah, I'll read this. Tucker gave it a 1.5 out of 10. I gave it a 1.3. Timo a 1.6, and Abram at the lowest a 0.5.
A 0 in front of the
Impressively low, I would say.
Impressively low. I would say that the only reason I didn't go below 1 is I tie these directly to my Letterboxd score, and it is impossible to go below a 1 in that sense. So, there you have it.
If I may defend what seems like a comically low score, I really think that this is a rare film that fails on every single front it tries to. And not only does it fall below on a fundamental level, it falls below in a way that becomes offensive and counterproductive. Yeah. The fact that this is, let's even remove it from the context of the filmmaking. This is the message that the Academy thought deserved to win. On a thematic level, I think it's inexcusable. I think this film is inexcusably bad.
And I think it's the Academy is at fault for letting it be the winner, letting it be the face of the movies for the year.
And let's not forget that this was in contention with Brokeback Mountain, which is a genuinely very good film with a very progressive message that was universally acclaimed. And instead of saying homophobia bad, they said racism bad and decided to let Crash win. But it's about a progressive message, so look at the Academy go. I don't know. It really feels like a ham-fisted way for them to not give it to the gay movie. I'm just reading very clearly into the politics of the Academy, and to give to something else, to say, we didn't give to that, but we gave to something else that's kind of intentionally or intended to be progressive. I don't know.
We all know what the Academy is like.
At the very least, just give it to Spielberg again. Munich was nominated this year. Just give it to Spielberg again. But they should have given it to Brokeback. And Tucker, didn't you say there was something about like a revote that was done semi-recently?
In 2015, some online publication did a revote, and they did a bunch of famously weird Oscar contentions. And Brokeback Mountain very clearly knocked down Crash. It was some crazy 20-1 win ratio for Brokeback Mountain.
I think Abram, part of your argument that it's completely inexcusable is this movie came out in 2004. This movie is a 21st century movie. The progressive attitudes, we're going to keep bringing it up, in Gentleman's Agreement, are miles ahead of what is said in this film, and that was made 60, 50 some years before this was. Racial attitudes in this country have changed, and things have gotten better, and people are able to think about it more clearly, and yet this is what they made. Yeah.
Hey, we're all just crashing into each other, man. We're all just crashing into each other.
Unfortunately, we had to crash into Crash. It was it's a speed bump on our quest to find the bestest. And I kind of genuinely hope this is the worst movie that we see, and it's all at least some way uphill from here, because even some of those weird older ones might have a charm to them because they're 40s movies. I don't know.
I don't think those will be offensively bad. Really just trying to swing for the fences and just letting the bat fly into the stands and take someone's jaw off like this movie did.
The last thing I want to say, I go to a very small liberal arts college, and I'm an English and film major. You would think one of my dumb C-average classmates wrote this movie. And that's just not a good sign. I think this movie just feels, I think in a single word that is not being condescending or anything, this movie just feels amateurish. It feels ill-conceived and amateurish. So I have nothing more to say.
Well, I think we've ribbed this film enough. We've torn it to shreds enough. We've had enough jokes at its expense, and maybe we should have been more serious with it. I think we kind of got more serious with it at the end, but it is just heinously, offensively bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't yell at the TV because I thought it was so good.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, well, should we lift our spirits a little bit with
Let's do it.
a little poetry recitation and a spin wheel? How does that sound?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
I'm ready. Let's move on for Christ's
Yeah,
sake.
let's get out of this fucking movie. Okay, we've got
Okay.
the numbers 1 through 52. Are you ready to let it rip, Tanner?
I'm ready.
Okay,
It's a Beyblade reference.
on your cue, brother.
Oh, okay. All right. Wheel, wheel, what's your deal? Give us a movie that makes us squeal. Is it on digital or is it on real? Wheel, wheel, what's your deal?
And the number we got, you can see it right there. It is 2-3, the number 23.
2, 3.
What film is this? Our official notes keeper, our man of record, Tucker. What do you?
Hello.
What do you have for us there at film number 23?
The film that I spy with my little eye is the 1981 Best Picture winner. It's got Ian Holm's the only actor that I recognize in this movie. He's a little bit down the cast. It's directed by a director that you're not going to recognize, Hugh Hudson. That's a new one on me. The 1981 Best Picture winner is Chariots of Fire.
Oh.
Chariots of
Dun,
Fire.
dun, 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 dun.
Oh yeah, that's from that movie.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, it's that.
Okay, so it's got a little bit of a cultural impact.
I recognize the name.
Yeah.
They parodied this in the 2014 London Olympics opening with Rowan Atkinson.
Yes.
Right.
This film has been parodied to infinity because of the scene that I dun 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 dun.
Yeah. Luckily, this is just slightly over 2 hours, so it's not like it's gonna be a huge time sink.
I thought this sounded like definitely like a 3-hour movie. But no, thank God.
Luckily, we get to escape that.
Okay.
All right.
None of us have seen this.
Sure.
None of us are particularly excited for it, but we're going in with an open mind. And if it's any consolation, we got the worst one out of the way, presumably. So it's all uphill from here, baby.
We did.
Let's do it.
In case you couldn't figure it out yourself, Crash is going at the very bottom, number 41, episode 41, place number 41. Probably big spoilers. Probably place number 42 next episode. I don't want to say anything too sure. Just that.
Place number 94.
Let's see. We will see if you are in this to find out the worst, the questest for the worstest. Well, maybe it's time to tune out. But if you're really into Quest for the Bestest, as we all are, trying to figure out the greatest movies that we've seen, well, you got to stick with us because we got tons more movies to get through. Thank you guys for joining me on this episode. We're going to be talking about Chariots of Fire next time. We'll catch you then. Peace.
We can make this into a real fuckboy film segment and make a joke about the Wolf of Wall Street
Oh,
And
we're
how
high on Quaaludes.
and the Quaaludes.
No, Quaalag is a Dark Souls 1 boss.
What was the? This is okay. Will you guys get mad at me if I introduce this movie as a racial
Probably.
roller coaster?
No, I would really be happy if you did that, actually.